Welcome to World Alert Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The relentless August sun beats down on the vast plains of Kansas, but the golden fields, once symbols of abundance, now tell a different, more troubling story. Farmers like John Miller, a third-generation wheat grower, stand by silos filled to the brim with a crop the world once clamored for, their hard work evident in every grain. Now his phone is silent. International buyers have turned their attention elsewhere, leaving uncertainty in their wake. This isn't about a bad harvest or poor weather. It's a crisis striking at America's core identity as the world's breadbasket, shaking the foundation of rural communities. Massive grain elevators are full, yet the usual parade of trucks and ships is missing, with vessels now charting courses to Canada instead. American farmers did their part, but the market has turned its back, a rejection that feels both sudden and deeply personal. Headlines across the nation tell a stark tale. U.S. wheat shipments rejected, buyers flock to Canadian grain, and uncertainty grows. For families built on generations of American agriculture, these headlines are verdicts of broken contracts, lost income, and dreams put on hold. The crisis unfolds not just in fields, but in distant trade agreements and boardrooms far away from the heartland. The world's confidence in U.S. wheat is crumbling, and with it, a sense of national pride. Tonight, we explore this economic battle, meeting farmers facing financial ruin and communities on edge. We'll investigate why the world's most reliable food supplier is now seen as a risk, and what it means for the future. And how Canada, almost unnoticed, has quietly filled the void left behind. The 2025 wheat crisis is about trust and reputation, not just agricultural economics or numbers on a spreadsheet. For American farmers, the question is no longer about growth or yield, but about survival and finding buyers in a world that has moved on. Silence has fallen over rural America, settling like a heavy fog across fields and small towns that once buzzed with activity and hope. A disconnected phone line, an absent email notification, signs that the world outside has stopped calling and the usual hum of business has faded away. At the local grain cooperative, managers stare at spreadsheets filled with red ink, their faces tense as they search for answers in a sea of losses. Calls to long-standing contacts in Mexico City, Manila, Seoul, are met with polite refusals, the kind that sting more for their familiarity. The grain is ready, quality is good, but buyers have secured supply from Canada, leaving American harvests untouched and hopes dashed. This silence creates uncertainty, seeping into every corner of the community, from empty diners to shuttered shops, casting a shadow over daily life. Farmers once proud of their record yields now worry about mounting bank loans and rising costs, their confidence shaken by forces beyond their control. The ripple effect is immediate. Equipment orders are canceled, seed deliveries postponed, and local businesses brace for a season with little to do. Young people reconsider returning to family farms, seeing an unsustainable future and questioning whether their roots can support new dreams. The rejection of a shipment is brutal. A vessel loaded with American wheat is turned away over paperwork, a symbol of lost opportunity and growing distrust. The news travels fast, reinforcing a narrative that dealing with U.S. suppliers is a gamble, and uncertainty spreads through headlines and social feeds. The silence is the sound of trust eroding, a reputation questioned, leaving farmers wondering how the system failed them and if it can ever be rebuilt. The fields themselves are not the problem. The land is as fertile as ever, and the crops have flourished under the care of dedicated farmers. The 2025 harvest was a resounding success, with yields meeting and even exceeding expectations in many regions. The quality of the wheat remains among the best in the world, with grains that are plump, golden, and highly sought after by buyers everywhere. The crisis we face is a crisis of confidence, not one rooted in the soil or the seed, but in the systems that support them. It's about the complex network that gets wheat from the heartland to global markets, a system that once ran like clockwork. For decades, product of USA was more than just a label. It was a seal of approval, a promise of reliability and excellence. But over time, trust has been chipped away by minor, persistent issues that have gone unaddressed. Delays in shipping, mixed grades at inspection, and clerical errors all paint a picture of a system that has grown complacent and slow to adapt. Global buyers now question the reliability of the supply chain, not the quality of the wheat itself, but the process that delivers it. In today's fast-moving market, perception quickly becomes reality. America is increasingly seen as a risky bet for importers. The crisis is not about the grain, but about the guarantee that comes with it, the assurance that promises will be kept. The world is watching, asking if the U.S. can still fulfill its promises and remain a trusted leader in global agriculture. To grasp today's crisis, we must look back at American wheat's history. Post-World War II, America became the planet's granary. The U.S. wheat industry set global standards for grading, trading, and shipping. This dominance was built on infrastructure, railroads, and river barges. Massive grain elevators stored and blended wheat to meet buyer specifications. The Chicago Board of Trade allowed risk management through a futures market. Generations of buyers built businesses around the reliability of the American system. But complacency set in. Infrastructure aged. Focus remained on volume. The system resisted change as new competitors emerged. The golden standard began to tarnish, unnoticed by many within the industry. The long era of stability created a sense of permanence, now challenged. The shift away from U.S. wheat was a slow erosion of trust. Small incidents like late shipments forced buyers to test alternatives. A miller in Mexico received mixed grades, questioning the premium price. Paperwork problems held shipments in customs, frustrating European importers. Each incident was manageable, but together they created a pattern. Word spread among global grain buyers, changing the narrative. The U.S. was no longer the gold standard for reliability. Buyers started seeking alternatives, exploiting cracks in trust. The foundation of trust, built over generations, showed serious cracks. Competitors were ready to exploit these weaknesses. The U.S. system's reputation was at stake. The loss of Mexico as a primary customer was shocking. Mexican buyers grew frustrated with inconsistent quality and delays. They found Canadian suppliers more responsive and reliable. The Philippines felt taken for granted by the U.S. system. Canadian exporters offered a customer-first approach, building partnerships. In Europe, meticulous standards highlighted U.S. paperwork errors. Canadian grain moved through European ports without a hitch. South Korea noticed growing inconsistency in U.S. shipments. Canadian suppliers listened and adapted to Korean needs. The decision to shift contracts was data-driven, not emotional. The U.S. was no longer the most reliable supplier. Canada's rise as a preferred wheat supplier was strategic. They focused on consistency, transparency, and customer service. The Canadian system was designed around buyer needs. Consistency was enforced by the Canadian Grain Commission. Transparency allowed buyers to track shipments in real time. This open book approach built immense trust. Canada excelled at customer-first service, understanding market needs. They tailored offerings, providing customized blends and solutions. By treating buyers as partners, they built deep relationships. The Canadian system stood in stark contrast to the U.S. approach. Canada's strategy won over even the most loyal U.S. customers. The global shift in the wheat market impacts American farmers deeply. For John Miller, full silos represent a broken promise. He faces selling at a loss or letting the crop sit in storage. Financial pressure touches every part of rural life. When farmers have no income, local businesses suffer. Young families see fewer opportunities, accelerating community decline. Farming is more than a job. It's an identity and legacy. The crisis shakes that identity, creating anxiety and despair. The ultimate cost is the loss of the next generation. Young people see a future of risk and diminishing returns. The wheat crisis costs America its market share and heartland future. The path back to global leadership for U.S. wheat is possible. It begins with admitting the world has changed, and the system must too. Massive investment in modernizing logistics is crucial. Implementing state-of-the-art tracking technology is essential. The goal is to make U.S. logistics a competitive advantage. The industry must overhaul communication and customer service. Moving to a relationship-based sales model is key. Consistency must become the new mantra, with flawless grading. Regaining trust requires more than delivering a good product. The U.S. must prove it is a reliable partner in the global food system. By focusing on logistics, communication, and delivery, the U.S. can rebuild trust.